All right. Welcome, everyone, to the August 12th edition of the Signals from Mars live stream. Joining me tonight is Mr. Jeremy Weltman. In the chat, we've already got Jose, all guns blazing. Jose, how are you? Hope you and the family are well. Jeremy, how are you?
Yeah, really good, Victor, really good. Very, very hot here in the UK, but I think it's quite hot there in Spain as well. So, snap.
It is hot everywhere, I think,
Yeah.
So, we're going to have a discussion here on our favorite albums that have come out in the first half of 2022 in a moment. I didn't rank them. Did you rank them?
No, I've not ranked them. I can add some of them that are going to be better than others, but no, I haven't done the 1 to 10. Yeah.
Yeah, similar deal. So, as far as new releases are concerned today, the new Arch Enemy was finally released today, Deceivers. I know that a bunch of us were hoping that there would be more clean singing on the album, and that hasn't been the case. But, what do we know? Arch Enemy have their formula down. They're popular as a result. They've been, as I mentioned in my write-up, their logo is always one of those big logos on the festival bills. They're always, top 25% on the bill easily. So, it works. So I get it. Check the album out if you're remotely a fan of theirs, because I'm sure you'll enjoy it one way or the other. Other albums that dropped today, new album by The Halo Effect, which, for those that don't know, is all of the former members of Iced Earth. Yeah. In Flames, excuse me, a different band with an I. In Flames with the singer of Dark Tranquillity. And we keep joking that with In Flames' latest songs that The Halo Effect has been them actually writing heavy music again. But anyway, new albums by Collective Soul, A to Z, which is a band with Mark Zonder of Fate's Warning fame, and the singer is Ray Adler of Fate's Warning, if I'm not mistaken. I may be screwing that up. I apologize. Let's see. Norma Jean, Boris, Hollywood Undead, Generation Radio, Erroneous, Moths, band out of Puerto Rico, actually. Progressive metal band out of Puerto Rico. Hydra, Relentless Spirits, Sunstorms, their second album with Ronnie Romero, after giving Jolyn Turner the boot. Nordic Union, Unprocessed, Killfeather, Seventh Storm, and Saratma. EPs from Shiva and Of Virtue, reissues by Bitter End, If These Trees Could Talk, live albums from Dream Theater, Creator, live at Bloodstock 2021. So you may actually hear Jeremy in the crowd during that one. Did you get to see Creator at Bloodstock?
I did not know. No, I didn't.
Okay. So scratch that. You will not be hearing Jeremy in there. Valden Plas, and a compilation by Jackal. Anything that kind of jumps out at you right off the bat?
Let's do a couple of those, actually. I mean, I listened to the Arch Enemy album, which you reviewed today, and I kind of agreed with what you wrote about it. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of growly vocal where we hoped there wouldn't be, and it's a shame, really, because they're a good band, but they really need to sort of make use of Elisa's good voice and just clean up the vocals, and it would be fantastic, and we'd be all thrilled to hear it. I listened to the Sunstorm album, Brothers in Arms. It's the second album with Ronnie now, and to be honest, I was quite disappointed. I got through the first section of the album. I thought was very bland. It wasn't very interesting. But as you got towards the end of the album, I thought they really let loose a little bit. I mean, there was a song called "Lost in the Shadows of Love," which was really good. Another song called "Miracle," and then "Living Out of Fear," which was it. I mean, they were the last two songs on the album, and they sort of let go little bit and played some, some decent songs. So I kind of like that, but overall, I wasn't too impressed. But I was quite more impressed with the Nordic Union album, Animalistic. It's their third album, isn't it? And Ronnie Atkins and Eric Mortensen. It's decent playing. It's very listenable, and it was a lot more. It was slightly heavier than the Sunstorm stuff. So they were quite good.
Awesome. As far as here's something we didn't discuss. Is there any patron's pick that you'd like to discuss?
Yeah, it's actually something that's on Ripple Music. There's a new album out by a band called Freedom Hawk, and it's called Take All You Can. So
Okay.
it's not out yet, but they've released a really good track, which I really enjoyed over the last few days. It's called Seize the Day. And as you know, I'm a big fan of Ripple Music stuff. They release a lot of different stuff. It's mostly sort of stoner stuff, or doom. This was a little bit more sort of psych rock. They're from Virginia Beach, quite sort of heavy rockers, but with that sort of psych sound as well. They've released another track called Age of the Idiot as well, which is available at the same time. So I'd recommend listening to that. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to the album.
Okay. Actually, they used to be on a friend of mine's label, and when I say friend,
Okay.
it's somebody that I went to high school with. They were, they were on a label called Meteor City years back, and they were one of the bands signed to their label. And this is going back 10 years ago, probably, because it was right at like the beginning of me podcasting.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Interesting.
So cool. Yeah, I saw that Ripple was going to be releasing that. I almost made that comment, and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if they ended up well or not on that label." And I'm like, "You never know whose toes you may step on." So I'm like, "All right, not that important." So,
I'd also like to mention something from last week as well, because
okay,
it's a week old now. But I listened to the new Heat album,
okay,
and I was a little bit sort of reluctant, because Heat 2, as you know, I've said in the past, I've loved that album. I think it's
yeah,
a fantastic album, and I still do. This new album was actually slightly better than I was expecting. I mean, it's called Force Majeure, and as you know, it's without Eric Grunwald, or however you pronounce it. We need to know the Swedish pronunciation of this, because I can't get it. But anyway, Kenny Lacremo is back, and I thought it was good. I listened to it a couple of times while I was working today, and I kind of enjoyed it. And I think he's that sort of band where they don't they don't produce anything really terrible, but it's a question of how far they're going to go up, and produce something. And it's not as good as Heat 2, but it's very well worth a listen.
gotcha. Okay, Jeremy, just real quickly on a side note here, you using your phone or your tablet?
My phone.
Okay, because it's really crackly today. I don't know why.
All right. Okay. I noticed when you played the intro, it was crackly at my end as well. I could try and go out and come back in again if you wanted me to do that.
Yeah, let's give it a shot real quick, and I can edit
Okay.
this out.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, cool. So while Jeremy jumps in and out of the session here, um, for those that don't know, we are creeping towards episode 300. If you're a patron, I've discussed this already, so maybe if you want to get the behind the scenes, could be a reason for you to join us on Patreon. But episode 300 will be the last episode of the Mars Attacks podcast. So yeah, I go into the reasons why on Patreon, and there will be, next month is 13 years since I've started podcasting. So one will coincide with the other. We have Jeremy back. Jeremy, let's see.
Okay, can you hear me?
Perfect now, seems like.
Oh, okay, good.
Awesome. So we're able to work that out fairly easily.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a few things that we've been going back and forth with these last few days, some new tracks as well. Hey, since we did new releases, let's talk about some of these new tracks real quickly here. So there was a Tesla track
Hmm.
that was released, I guess, about a week ago, and I posted that up on Patreon. And what are your thoughts on the Tesla track? Did you like it? Or were you expecting something different? Did you want Shock Part 2? What's your interpretation?
Look, the thing is, I bought the last album and I quite enjoyed it. I quite enjoyed it because it was a bit different, and I wanted them to do something a bit different at that stage of their career. Obviously, it was Def Leppard. It was, that sort of sound. I think there's some good songs on that album, even though overall I think they probably made a mistake overall, in doing it. This new track, I think, is, it's back to what they were doing in the early days. And I don't know if you've seen the cover. They've probably done the cover to the album, which is on Spotify, so you can see the picture of it. And I think it's got a train coming through, and at the front of the train, it's got 1986 on the front, which gives me the impression that they are wanting to go back to their original, what they were doing right at the start and just playing rock and roll. And when I first listened to it, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really great track. It sounded like Tesla. It sounded like a rock and roll song. It was exciting, and I'm looking forward to the album, because if it's in that sort of vein, it's going to be a good album.
Yeah. I didn't have any high hopes for this track.
Okay.
And my reason being is that, as big of a Tesla fan that I am, let me just pull up my Tesla playlist here so that I don't screw up the album order. I think that their first 3.5 albums are classic.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I think Into the Now has a lot of good stuff on it as well. But after that, outside of the track Breaking Free off of Forevermore, yeah, I didn't like Simplicity. I didn't like Shock. So I really wasn't expecting much out of this. It's better than what I expected, but as Anthony Mackie pointed out, like, they rhymed like a bunch of like words that they've used like a million times in the past, rock top, and I forget what the other one was. And I was like, well, running out of ideas, I guess. But hey, this is better than what I expected, so I'll take it. You know. I'm overall, I'm pleased with it, and I'm looking forward to see what else they release. They said they're not going to release an album, that they may just release
Okay.
songs here and there. So,
Right.
so we'll see if that changes. Maybe it'll be a few songs. They'll put those together and decide to put out a full album, or who knows, maybe it'll just be an EP in the end.
Mm.
But um
Have you heard anything about a tour? Maybe.
they're touring now, because
Oh, they are. Right.
there's live clips out there. They were playing this song live before they released the video or single. So if you really wanted to hear it beforehand, you could have. I just, I hadn't done that.
Be nice to see them in the UK again, because it's been a while really since they've been over.
Yeah, I've only seen them once, and it was roughly 12 years ago. So I'm assuming that, they were in the UK at around that time, because that's how festivals go. They play, they do the rounds. They do a few in the UK, they do the ones here, they go, to France, to, so on and so forth. So usually whoever plays Download, the next weekend they're playing someplace in Spain.
Yeah, that was about the time when I saw them, to be honest. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's possibly that they haven't been
Mm.
back since.
Well,
Um,
listen, it's an encouraging track, and hopefully, if they're doing that sort of stuff, it'll be great.
yeah, absolutely. Megadeth has released their third track off of their upcoming album. What did you think of this track? Let me pull up the name real quick here so that I don't screw it up. It is called Soldier On. The new album is called The Sick, the Dying, and the Dead. That album comes out, it is next month. And I believe this comes out the same day as the Ozzy album, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. Mm.
If it doesn't come out, let me just look at the release dates real quick here. September 2nd. No, okay, so it's September 2nd is Megadeth, King's X, and Blind Guardian are releasing their new albums.
Okay.
The Ozzy album is the following week, and that week has Ozzy, Electric Callboy, Flogging Molly, Parkway Drive, Revocation, Fallujah, Tala, and Alan Olsen comes out that day. So September is going to be a huge month for new releases. And actually, the week before that, Jesus, August 26th, Machine Head and Muse. um, and next week we have Soilwork, Spirits Adrift, Thunder Mother, Five Finger Death Punch. So yeah, so the next few weeks, we've been hearing for a long time how all of these albums have been there, waiting to be released. It seems like all the heavy hitters are starting to come out now. New Clutch and Behemoth on September 16th. The 23rd brings us a new album by Venom Inc. The 30th, The Daisies, Dropkick Murphys, Pixies, Tankard. October 7th, Queensryche, Lamb of God, Bush, Ginger Wildheart and the Sinners. So October 14th, Skid Row, Alter Bridge, Orianthe. October 21st, Avantasia. October 28th, Devin Townsend, Massive Wagons. And November, where we're hitting, holiday season. Let's see, Eccentrics. Yeah, it kind of, at that point, it drops off. But look, from now until the end of October, a lot of heavy hitters are releasing albums, a lot of stuff that we're looking forward to. So,
Yeah.
for that lazy listener who says that nothing good has come out since 1989, there are plenty of reasons to listen to new music, and doesn't mean you have to pick it up. You can always stream it. If you like it, throw the band a bone and pick it up,
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
so
Mm.
plenty there to want to listen to. But your thoughts on the Megadeth?
Yeah. To be honest, I've only briefly heard it, and I tried to play it a second time just as we were coming on now. I really liked it. Really liked it. And you know what? I'm quite impressed by the three. I think we've heard three tracks now
Yes.
off this new
Mhm.
album, and I'm looking forward to this album. And I'm not a massive Megadeth fan, as I've mentioned before. I'm not that keen on Dave's vocal all the time.
Mhm.
He's not my favourite, and sometimes I've found in the past that they've been a bit too thrashy without having much direction. But I'm finding these songs have got direction. They've got a purpose, and they've got a bit of melody in there.
Mhm.
So I was quite favourable, and I'd like to hear it again, and that's always a good sign if you want to play it, on a repeat. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the album based on what I've heard so far.
Yeah, so I like all three tracks as well. I think he was very smart in bringing Dirk from Soilwork into the band, who Dirk is also a producer, has co-written quite a few things in Soilwork as well, has a death metal band outside of Megadeth as well. So I think Dave is a very smart person in the sense that he always surrounds himself with great musicians. Um, I don't know. Dystopia, I know a lot of people love that album, but there was like something missing in that album to me. There was something that was missing to really live up to the hype. And to me, it seems like this album is maybe there what I was waiting for
Mm,
Dystopia. So we'll see with the rest of the album.
mm,
Let's hope that these three aren't the best songs and then everything else sucks off of it.
yeah.
Um, so we'll see. Um, a new Scorpions track called Hammersmith, which I'm assuming is referring to, the famous club in London more than anything, the Hammersmith Odeon, Hammersmith Apollo, and whatever other Hammersmith names it's taken on over the years. This apparently was a bonus track in the UK, and now they've released it to the rest of the world. Had you have listened to this song before?
No, but I would just point out something. I've got the Scorpions box set, and I've listened to all the vinyls on that box set, but I've not yet listened to all of the CDs. For one thing or another, I've been lazy and not taken them out and listened to all the extras. Now, I have with one or two albums, and I've noticed there's a lot of demos on there and a lot of extras on these CDs.
Mhm.
So I need to now go back tomorrow and see if it's on one of those, because I don't know if it is or not. But as far as I can say now is that I've never heard it before.
Yeah, it's supposedly from the Rock Believer sessions.
Right, so it will be after the box set then, and obviously won't be. Yeah, okay. So no, I've never heard this. It's not with anything that I've got.
Okay. After listening to it a little bit, I listened to it earlier today. It's one of these tracks where sometimes you find gold with demos, and sometimes you listen to them and you say, right, there's a reason why this wasn't part of
Mm,
the rest of the album because it's just not strong enough. I have a feeling we're going to talk about Rock Believer a little bit later on when it comes to talking about the best of 2022 so far. And I think that this song is really a notch below all the songs that ended up on Rock Believer.
yeah,
So it's
yeah, I
not a
agree with you.
yeah. Go
Yeah, I
ahead.
was just going to say I absolutely agree with you on that. It's fine. It's a scorpion. You can tell it's Scorpions, and there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it. But it's not in the so it's not higher echelon of what Scorpions do, and so you can see why it's not there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we agree on that. And then the last thing that came out that I mentioned to you is the new song by Sodom, which is
Mm,
called 1982, similar to what you said with Tesla. They're throwing it right back there to, their beginnings in the early 80s. And for me, I think Johan summed it up when he talked about Sweden Rock in that, they're kind of back to doing what they were known for. They're not reinventing the wheel at all with this, but it's, I think what most people want to hear from the band. So,
yeah.
um, just
Yeah.
thrash.
I Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with you. It's perfectly fine song. I've not heard it all yet, and I need to give it a bit more time tomorrow. But yeah, it was fine. I'm never fully on board with the vocal for Sodom, but that said, they're a decent band, and there's songs there which I really like, and this falls into that category. So it's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Okay. There was a hot topic this week, and no, we're not talking about Tommy Lee posting a shot of his of his wiener online. Oh, by mistake. It was only everywhere, but it was by mistake. And
And
and then
it wasn't really a wiener; it was more a huge. Anyway, we won't go with that.
yeah, bratwurst.
Yeah,
Anyway, it's one of these things where they come out and bitch about the Pam and Tommy series that was released. which was released on Hulu in the US. I saw it on Disney Plus here in Spain. They complained about that series, and a day after they mentioned it was nominated for all these awards, sure enough, it was like Tommy saying, "Hey, man, I can prove that that my bratwurst don't talk." So I don't know. It's just one of these head scratchers where you wonder, where's his head at? Oh yeah, it's where the picture was taken. Um, but yeah, Andy McCoy of Hanoi Rock taking a lot of shots at the crew these last few weeks. Well, actually, it's probably from one interview, but Blabbermouth has kind of spread it out there. But talking about calling Nikki Sixx a second-class citizen, saying that Vince Neil never apologized to him for killing Razzle, and a bunch of other things. Um, I know that Metal Dan, one of our patrons, said that interesting interview, but that you could tell that Andy McCoy was a medicated mess, is what he said. So, I don't know, just part of the whole Motley Crue circus, all of it. Whether it's Tommy, whether it's Andy McCoy, it's all still part of the whole nuttiness that has surrounded this band since the inception. So, the hot topic news story that I wanted to bring up, something that you wanted to discuss, was the Commonwealth Games was closing in Birmingham. Did I say that?
That's right. We'll let you off. It's okay.
You'll let me off. How would you say it in a Bromy accent?
In Birmingham.
There
it's in Bromy, mate. All right, it's in Birmingham. That's where it is.
So, the closing of the Commonwealth Games. The big to-do is Ozzy saying he's back. A lot of people are saying they're skeptical that it was lip syncing, that it was all playback. What would you wager to say? Was he live? Or as the old commercial was, I don't know if they had this commercial in the UK, but in the US, there was a commercial for Memorex cassettes. And it was a guy sitting in a sofa, and he would hit play on the tape deck, and then all of a sudden, due to the sound, the power of the music coming out would break a glass, would send shards of glass everywhere, and it would say, "Is it live or is it Memorex?" So, was Ozzy live or was he Memorex? What is your opinion, Jeremy?
Okay, so I just need to give you a very small bit of background to this, because there was an interview with the guy who set this up in Birmingham on the radio here in the UK on Monday, and the guy who set all this up, that get Ozzy Osbourne for a long time, and he didn't know whether he was going to pull it off or not, because he was getting no all the time. And then and apparently in the final week before the games were due to begin, I think, or as they were starting, he finally got a yes, presumably from Sharon, to say that they would come over, and they flew them over specially for the closing game. So none of us in the UK knew that this was going to happen, because all the other bands were already planned to play. Nobody really knew that Tony was actually going to play at the closing ceremony, because he already played at the start, and he played another song and just played the guitar on it, and we all knew that that's what he was going to do. So this was a big surprise that it was going to happen, and so because of that, it was all very last minute. And as you know, Geezer Butler wasn't flown over either, so they got a different band together. Tony was there. I don't know if you also noticed, but behind Ozzy there was like a sort of a stick and a sort of like a rest thing behind him, with like a sort of a leather thing that was sort of in case he fell over, I guess, or he could lean against it, presumably as he was waiting to come on, and also just in case he tottered. And I don't know also when you saw play through it, there was a tiny totter. He kind of just looked down a little bit, and as if he was going to, he was not quite comfortable. Taking all that into account, and also the fact that when he spoke, because he actually mentioned a few things, didn't he, during the song, he sort of said, great to be back or whatever. His voice was very different to the voice on the track. The
Right.
track for me was quite an old track, I think, when his voice was really good. So my answer to you is there's absolutely 100% no way that he was singing that. And when you look at it very, very closely, you can see a couple of moments where his voice doesn't quite catch up with the song. His mouthing to it, his miming to it, the lip syncing, and it's not quite in time. And I've watched it 3 or 4 times, and I'm pretty convinced that it is a track that he's singing over. And I'm not even quite certain whether Tony Iommi's playing either. But that's a separate issue. Maybe he's playing the solo over the top, but who knows?
Yeah. Okay. So, as someone once explained to me, before they do any of these shows, they usually pre-record the live part of the show.
Mm.
So that way, if the sound cuts out, if there's wind, if their voice isn't great that day, they end up sounding great. They do this for the Super Bowl. They do it for any type of TV appearance because you've only got one shot to make it work. And I know there's people out there that have doubted, when I've said this, oh no, you could tell, between this and between that, they're live. Yeah, no, bullshit. They're pulling the volume up and down because they know in spots where they can talk and where they can't talk. And usually it's possible that this was recorded, way before one of the last Black Sabbath tours. And they've been using this for years when they go out and play because the bass player was Adam Wakefield, who's usually the keyboard player. What you said about Tony, there was also, if you notice, the amp arrangement was really weird because they had 3 amps pointing one way, 3 amps pointing another. I get it, they were in the round, but there's no bass amps as far as I could tell. He had
Mm.
that bass or the brace behind him that looked like what Kiss would have when they would come down, from the ceiling. They have an apparatus like that behind them usually. So, yeah, kind of interesting. I just think that it was pre-recorded just because that's the protocol for all of
Mm.
these shows. I know that people have started coming out and say, "Oh, he's back. He's back. I told you." You know. Um I have to see him live. Ozzy has notoriously re-recorded all of his live stuff. Just listen to Speak of the Devil, listen to Tribute, listen to Live at Budokan. Reunion is one of the only live albums that isn't touched up. And he even says it in the liner notes that, he hated the rest of the band for not allowing him to, not re-record and forcing him to keep things as is. There's like 2 or 3 spots where his voice goes out of key. So what? I think that's great. That's what makes rock and roll dangerous.
Mm.
You know, it isn't,
Mm.
it's funny. It isn't as if I said this to my wife the other day. There's a meme out there of somebody playing the Titanic theme with a recorder with a wooden flute, and it just sounds horrible and out of tune. I'm like, it doesn't sound anywhere near as bad as that. Does he sound like he did in the 70s? Of course not. But I don't know. Does this mean that your Ozzy tickets are finally good? Does it mean that people are finally going to be able to see Ozzy live? I would love to see him live, with Priest opening up as they've been promising for years. But I don't know. We can hope for the best, but I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I'm not sure if he'd be able to last a full tour.
No. I mean, I think the answer to that is still no. I mean, at the end of the day, this was 3.5 minutes of playing a song that he's very familiar with. He didn't move from the spot. I mean, he couldn't move. He almost fell over once. He didn't fall, but he looked as if he was unsteady. If you look at him in the face, he doesn't look right. He still looks unwell. He was putting on a brave show, and good luck. He did it, but he probably did it because they were paying a fortune and they got him over, and he wanted to show that he was still going. And Sharon knows that they've got tickets, that the people are paying money for next year. But he's still got a long way to go to be able to stand there for 90 minutes and do all the hits and walk around the stage. Even it's a lot to expect, really. And go back to the thing about lip syncing. I mean, I just remembered actually at the beginning of the Commonwealth Games, I watched the opening ceremony and everything was recorded. I mean, they were all miming to everything. So it's no surprise that even at the end they were doing the same thing, really.
Yeah. Again, I've always said this. People don't understand how much money these artists can make at festivals. I think it's more realistic that Ozzy play 4 or 5 festivals for an hour than actually doing a full-blown tour, doing Download, doing a Wacken, doing, a Hellfest, and maybe a date here and there, doing like an Ozfest in New York, doing an Ozfest in LA. And that being it, I can't see him going out, like you said, 90 minutes and doing a 6-month tour, a 3-month tour. One thing is a show every 2 weeks, one show every 2 weeks during a 4-month span. We're talking about 6 to 8 shows in total. That's one thing. The other thing is actually going out and, really forcing his vocals and everything else. I don't know. I don't see it. I would love for that to take place, but I just don't think it's realistic. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, and the thing is, why doesn't Ozzy play a little bit further down the bill? He could play second fiddle instead of playing a headliner. I mean, we're expecting him to come out and be a headliner and do 90 minutes, do a proper show. I mean, he could play second on the bill to another bigger act. I mean, is he that big anymore? Yes, he always was, but he could play below and just do, like you say, 50 minutes, an hour, and that the pressure is off. It's easier to do, really.
That's a very interesting point, because until really his rise of fame with TV, with the Osbournes, with the inception of Ozfest, basically because they wouldn't take him on Lollapalooza. Ozzy played a lot of shit as not the headliner. You think back at like the Moscow Peace Festival. He was the first one on that day after Gorky Park. Cinderella, Skid Row, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue all played after him. The US Festival, he was one of the first people to go on when Jakey Lee's debut. It was like that for a very long time. I get it that he has this reputation. Now he's built something else up. But to your point, the last Ozfest, if I'm not mistaken, or at least one of the last Ozfests, Metallica was the headliner and Ozzy was the second to last act. So there's no reason why they couldn't do Ozfest with a Metallica and having Ozzy doing that, playing second fiddle or even third, have a Metallica, a Judas Priest, and an Ozzy on the bill,
Yeah.
So,
I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. We've got a bit of time till next year, but time's running out. We're already hitting September, and he's supposed to be playing, I think, March next year. And that time
Yeah.
will fly, and we don't know, what it'll be like in the winter. So we'll see.
Yeah. 6 months.
Let's hope.
6 months,
Fingers crossed.
if you think about it,
Yeah.
because we're in September, 3 months to the end of the year, basically 4 months, and then March is 3 months in, so roughly
Mm.
6 months. He'll have to start. He'll have to start, rehearsing, and then there's the whole thing with that Pantera thing with Zach. Is that a signal that Zach is going to be spending more time out of Ozzy than in
Mm.
Ozzy?
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, well, I just mentioned we talked about Ozzy. We talked about how a lot of heavy hitters are putting out albums. I didn't mention Slipknot. I forgot that one because I have written down here. We're going to be talking about some of our favorite albums of the first part of 2022. And one of the things that I wrote as well is that we do have the Ozzy album, the Megadeth, and the Slipknot coming out between now and the end of the year. So there's still a lot of good stuff to be had and to come out. And those are just three big artists. That's not even counting some of the smaller artists, because my list here goes beyond very big artists. There's little known artists, there's independent artists, there's a little of everything. So I wanted to start with you. What are some of the albums that stand out to you? I actually have 15 albums that I've listed here.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I've got. Let me just see. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got 14 on my list as well. So I'm going to take them. I'll take the ones that are sort of bubbling under first, and we'll talk about the bigger ones later. So
okay.
three of those. I'd just like to pick three that came out at various points this year, which I thought were good, without
Mhm.
being brilliant, but were worth a listen.
Mhm.
One of them is the Tony Martin album, Thorns.
Yep.
The other one is Anvil's album, Impact is Imminent, which I picked as a patron's pick during the year. The third one is the Michael Schenker Group album, Universal. Now, all three of those albums I thought were very listenable. I thought they were all fairly typical of their sort of genre and what they kind of do.
Mhm.
And I thought that, they were all decent releases without being, top 10 material. They don't all have to be. But they didn't disappoint.
Yeah.
And there were certainly tracks, there were tracks on them all, which I really enjoyed.
Yes, I agree with you. Well, I look back at my 2022 playlist and I went by what albums had the most songs in that playlist for me. The Tony Martin happens to be there. That's on my list. But there's a
Mm.
lot of stuff that's just single songs or two songs. There's nothing wrong with that. But hey, we're trying to point out some of the more solid albums, and obviously our tastes are slightly different. For me, so if I go with the first three here, I would go with the self-titled debut by the band Maul, which I had
Mm.
their bass player on earlier this year. There's a song off of that called Summoner, which I'm
Mm.
now hearing in my head as I'm mentioning it. And it's one of those songs where it's got the catchy ass chorus where it just gets stuck in your head for days on end. So there's that. I really like Crowbot's latest album, Feel This. I think that was
Mm-hmm.
very strong, possibly the strongest album they've released in quite some time. And I also want to point out the Black Swan album, Generation Mind. I really feel that that was strong, and I didn't expect it to be strong, because it's one of these projects where, all right, so it's a bunch of guys from, bands that we know. For them, a lot of times, and for the most part, these are all right, checks in the mail. I recorded it here you go. I don't care type of a deal. But the band is really, playing above what I expected. This isn't an album that's chock full of ballads. It isn't just there, just to uh placate the typical 80s crowd, because some of these riffs are very heavy, very crushing. Reb Beach is phenomenal on this. I think he's like the unsung hero, and this was almost like his turn out of any album that he's recorded since the beginning, where he's always bitched about the whole Beavis and Butthead thing, and how why was Metallica praised and why weren't we praised? I can riff heavier and better than Kirk Hammett, and this is the first time where it seems like he's really taken a stab at doing that. So, and Robin McCauley is just fucking ridiculous on this. He's singing, just as good as ever. And I think the combination of the band as a whole is just so good. It's funny. I was thinking about what was better, this or the End Machine. And as much as I like the End Machine, I think George has kind of done too many projects where he's mailed things in, and it's kind of given me that kind of like, as much as I love George, this album isn't working for me. The End Machine really worked, but I truly think that this Black Swan album is really a cut above what Jeff has done in the End Machine, for example. So
yeah, they're all good picks. I really like the Mall album as well. It just shows you how many great albums have been released so far this year, because we haven't even touched on all of them yet. And,
right.
We just mentioned a few. Yeah, it's great. I'd just go on and mention a couple more. I mean, there was another one which was a patron's pick for me. It was a UK band which I remember from the New Album era, New Wave of British Heavy Metal era. Cloven Hoof released an album called Time Assassin, which I thought was much more interesting than their early stuff. It was obviously better produced. Their songwriting has improved since the early days of the 80s. I think they obviously disbanded for a long time and then just sort of came back. And it was well worth a listen, and it was really good that week. And I think I picked it as one of the patrons' picks that week. And then we're going to go into another album, which is a New York band called Sanhedrin. Now, I bought this album. It's called Lights On, and it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, I've listened to some of their earlier stuff, and it's okay, but this album, they really get it on with the songs. There's some songs on there about the, COVID, the pandemic, and I think there's only about 8 songs on the album, but they all rock. They're all well written. They're all catchy in the end, and you just want to play it again and again. They've got a female vocalist. It's a 3-piece band, and if anyone's never heard it, really go and listen to it straight away, because it's superb stuff.
Cool. You're just going to mention those 2 now? Or you want to go with
just 2 at the moment? Yeah.
Okay.
Go on. I'm dying to hear a couple from you.
Okay. I will chime in with 2 more here. The next one, and we welcome Brad Dahl to the show. I guess the clocks aren't working in Utah right now. Oh, they're on retirement time.
Wait a second. Let's take a look at this here clock, shall we?
Oh, look at that.
It's a half past Power and Glory.
There you go.
Yeah, it says it's 4 o'clock. I thought this show started at 4.
No, I know. We start an hour earlier now. We take up where the old Fireside show was. We start up when the well,
I don't look at the clock very much anymore. I don't have to get up in the morning.
There you go.
This is what happens when you're retired. You lose all sense of what's going on.
Like, who cares what time it is, man? It's always party time.
Us folks that are nearing midnight. That's who cares. So, all right. So next 2 for me, a band out of Canada, a little bit left of center for what we usually do. They're called the Birthday Massacre. They released an album called Fascination. I should be receiving the vinyl on Tuesday, supposedly. So the best way to describe the Birthday Massacre, before like a lot of the Stranger Things 80s like keyboard heavy stuff started getting popular, The Birthday Massacre was doing that already for 10 years, 10 to 15 years when they first released their music. The thing is, it's not just that. There's a lot of heavy guitars that go along with it. So just think of like your bands from, bands like the Motels or Till Tuesday or stuff like that with heavy guitars and with much more aggressive singing because their lead singer Chibi, excuse me, from time to time does throw growls in there, not overly growly like the arch enemy that we mentioned before, but she does it where it's needed. It's kind of peppered in there. So I've always enjoyed the band, and I enjoy this new album as well. That came out earlier. Zeal and Ardor, the self-titled album that they released earlier this year, that I featured as one of the albums of the week on Patreon. I really enjoyed this album more so than anything else that they've released. I'm a huge fan of Nine Inch Nails, and this album is really a hodgepodge of industrial hard rock. The band has been known for black metal in the past. There's a little black metal on here. There's straight up hard rock on there. There's gospel on here. There's blues on here. There's a little of everything, which is what I think makes the album so cool. Is that there's like no defining box. Like everyone, when I was reading reviews about, oh, they're black metal, black metal, black metal. I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot because everyone talks the band up, and I listened to it and I'm like, okay, there are elements there, but it's not what I was expecting. So this one is one that I really enjoyed. So, Brad, have you done your homework? Do you have any albums that have come out in 2022 that you want to mention so far? Me and Jeremy have listed off 5 albums each.
No, I'm way behind on my homework. What? Give me your 5 albums real quick. I'll tell you if I've heard them.
Okay, Jeremy, go ahead. You give him.
Yeah, so I mentioned Tony Martin's Thorns album.
I have that. I bought that, and I like it a lot. That came out this year?
Yes. Very early.
Wow. Yeah. So, yeah, every time I hear it again, I still like it and like it more even. I think he did an excellent job. I don't know what he's going to do with this now. I don't know if it's like putting out albums just to put out an album in today's world seems kind of silly, but I like the music, so there you go. Yeah, 100% on that one. Okay, what else you got, Jeremy?
Yeah, a few more just bubbling under the top 10. There was Anvil's Impact is Imminent, which I picked a patron's pick. You obviously know what you're going to get with Anvil, so it's very much in their sort of usual vein. And then the Michael Checker Group album.
I did buy that based on your review.
Yeah.
But I haven't listened to it yet because I've got a stack of music like almost as tall as me that I haven't listened to yet. You'd think with all this time off, I'd be listening to more music, but right now I'm actually learning more music. So, okay, what else?
So the Michael Schenker Group album, Universal, is latest.
I bought that as well, and I haven't heard it yet.
Okay, and then I went on to Cloven Hoof, Time Assassin.
I bought that because of your recommendation, and I did listen to that. That's been, that was like back in March or something.
Yeah, it's a while back.
I was out in my garden when I was listening to it, and I liked it a lot and bought it. So there you go.
And then final one, New York band Sanhedrin with Lights On.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, and I didn't buy it. And I know you did pick it, and I probably should pick it up because you picked it. I normally buy everything you recommend. That's my biggest recommendation out of the 5, actually. That one. Oh well, I better get on it. I'll correct that error tonight. As you might have seen, I corrected my Firewind collection based on your comment. So I do have that, but I haven't listened to that yet either. All right, Victor, what are your 5?
Okay, so we did overlap with the Tony Martin. I picked the self-titled album Mall by Mall. I bought that as well. Wait,
I think I have listened to that, and it's actually really good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
They're the Canadian boys, right?
Yep, they're the one.
BC boys.
Yep.
Yeah. See, it's all coming back to me now. Yeah, I bought it, I listened to it, and I like that a lot. Very Iron Maiden-esque.
Yes. See that? Brad has all of a sudden become Celine Dion, and it's all coming back to him. Let's see. My next
Well
pick
played.
here is "Feel
I'm
This" by
also getting more fit there.
"Feel This" by Crowbot.
No.
Okay. "Generation Mind" by Black Swan.
I definitely have that, and I really like that a lot. I've listened to that several times, so I don't think it's as good as the first one, which is weird. I've heard other people say opposite, that they think this one's better, and I think you're one of those, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So maybe it'll grow on me the more I listen to it. But yeah, you put those boys in a room, and I'm buying it. I really keep hoping and praying that they will actually do a show somewhere, like Vegas, um, which yeah, I'd go there in a heartbeat. I'd go to LA to see them too. So all right, what else?
And then the last two you joined us when I rattled them off was the "Birthday Massacre Fascination" and "Zeal
Ah,
and Ardor" by Zeal and Ardor. So
okay, I haven't heard either of those, so I can't comment on that.
okay. Jeremy,
Mm.
what do you want? What do you want to give me now?
Yeah, so the next few, I'll give you three. So we got the Michael Romeo album, War of the Worlds Part 2, which came out in March, I think.
Okay.
Some great guitaring on there. It was a decent album. And then there's an album by a band on Ripple Music called Valley of the Sun. They released an album called The Chariot, which is really well worth a listen. That sort of traditional, sort of classic-y rock sounding. Some good songs on there, really good band. And then
What's the name of the band again, Jeremy?
that one was Valley of the Sun.
Valley of the Sun. Okay.
We'll
Yeah,
put a
with the
list.
Chariot.
We'll put a list together, Brad. Don't worry.
No, I'm gonna have to buy this right now.
And then the next one is one that I think we'll all agree on because we made a big thing of it when it came out. In fact, I see the band in October. They're a band called Fury from the
I have that
West
album.
Midlands here in the UK, and the album was called Born to Sin, and we all like that one. Just a great rock band. They've obviously got really good singer, the guy on guitar. You interviewed the whole band. They
Right.
sing really great. Got they got a girl on bass, haven't they, and some female vocal backing vocals as well. And they just they got some great songs.
Yeah, that's a really good album. I like that one a lot.
Does the West Midlands accent differ very much from the Birmingham accent?
It's pretty much the same, so I'm not going to do it again.
All right. So for me, all right. So since you did three, I'll do three as well. So I have on here "Error" by The Warning, band out of Mexico, three sisters who had been releasing singles and EPs all of last year, and they pretty much put it all together in an album which they released this year with, I believe it's 5 or 6 additional tracks. And I think the album caught me by surprise. Actually, the first song that I heard by them, "Choke," I knew who they were, but I had never really heard any of their original material. It was a bunch of sisters that had covered Metallica years ago on the sidewalk in Mexico City, and it was a big deal because they were 11, 12, and 13, and this and that, and they've gone on to cover Metallica on the new Metallica tribute album that was released, coinciding with the re-release of the Black album. One of the only songs that was worth it, in my opinion, because they reworked Enter Sandman to kind of make it their own. It's kind of cool. But yeah, I stumbled upon them by mistake. It was one of these things that I was watching another video and I was letting just YouTube go, and all of a sudden I heard the song "Choke." And I'm like, wait a second, what is this? And I was pleasantly surprised. I'm like, wow, finally a recommendation that I haven't heard that I really like. And I remember that night I listened to the video, or I watched the video like 7 or 8 times. And once the single came out, immediately downloaded, so on and so forth. So Error by the Warning, I think it's a really strong album. I believe they were supposed to open for Foo Fighters on their tour, but obviously with everything that happened with Taylor Hawkins, that didn't happen. But yeah, I see a lot of good stuff for them in the future. A band that I would love to have on the show, at least their mastermind, Trevor, I believe his name is. Their PR person is Nikki Law, who I interviewed a few weeks back. The band is called Haunt. The album is Windows of Your Heart. And again, it's a band that every album has some good stuff on it. There's always 5 to 6 really strong songs on every album that he writes and releases. So I really think that this is something worth checking out. Now the last one that I'm going to mention here, it's another one of these industrial fused hard rock bands that I know that I love, but I know that some of you guys kind of don't. Stabbing Westward, a band out of Chicago who had been on hiatus since the late 90s. Finally got back together again and put out an album called Chasing Ghosts. And there's a lot of cool stuff on this. I'm really happy with this album. Again, when you have bands getting back together again, is it going to be some just wonky album that they did for the paycheck? Or in this case, it seemed like there were songs that they'd been working on for the last few years with every reunion that they had, and they finally released a full album's worth of music, and I'm pleased with it. So those are my three.
Would you say that Stabbing Westward album fits in with the rest of their catalog, or is it different in a way, or?
It fits in with the rest of their stuff. I mean, they have. Are you aware of who they are?
I actually play a few of their songs on Yard Metal, thanks to you. Because of you talking about them, I went and got their best of, and cycled through it and picked about 5 songs that I'm featuring. Yeah. So yeah, I like a lot of what they do. Well, from that album anyway. So I will check that one out.
Yeah, I think it falls in line with everything that they've done in the past. So that's cool.
Yeah, Haunt, I also bought that one. I haven't listened to it yet. And I bought the one that came out before it. They put out like an album every 5 months, it seems like.
Yes.
He's when I listen to the albums, there's just something kind of just doesn't quite grab me about them. And I think it's mostly the vocals. They're just kind of, I don't know. And I see posts about people talking about how great of a singer he is. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe live it's a different story. But yeah, recorded. And plus the recording is so lo-fi. It's not like exciting to the ears. Right. But every so often when I do play quite a bit of them on Yard Metal, because I'm trying to support, younger bands that are rocking. And every time a song does come up, I'm like, hey, this is actually a really good song. I don't know why I didn't, I obviously thought enough of it to play it. So I will dive into that new album and well, the last 2 albums I'll dive into eventually and get some of that up on the air. So
yeah.
Haunt.
Since everything that he does is very DIY, very do it yourself. Yeah, he's releasing limited edition vinyls and cassettes and t-shirts like every so many months. That's, I think, what the allure is for a lot of people, is that he's very personable and that there's a lot of, cool stuff to buy. So
do they play out much?
They now have a solidified lineup. So I believe they are going to be doing more shows. Cool. But yeah, for a time period there, they weren't doing any shows. I mean, between COVID and everything else, and it was just a one-man show for quite a bit. So
okay, yeah. One thing about them is they have like almost zero social media presence out there, which hopefully Nikki's doing something about that. Because I've tried to find out more about them. I think they're from Fresno. Is that right?
Yeah, they're somewhere out in California.
Somewhere in the middle of California, yeah. Which I lived in Fresno for a while. And if you can call it that. Saw a few great concerts there. Yeah, I would like to see them live. I think that would probably be hopefully a more exciting experience.
Not at the Pepsi Center, right?
Sure, and I'm not going to Denver. No, I
Oh, no,
would
all
go.
right. I'm mixing it up. What's the name of the?
The Vivint Home Arena, I think is what it is.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that place
Yeah.
blows. I mean, totally. Although like I said, when I saw Journey there, Toto warmed up, and they sounded unbelievably good. And I mean, take the earplugs out, not crazy loud. You could hear every instrument playing, and you could hear all the vocals, all the great backing vocals that are probably mostly live. And then Journey comes on, and it was just a total like, what the hell happened? Who's running the board, man? I don't know. And supposedly Neil Sean really is picky about who's running the sound. He actually listens to tapes that are recorded out front, and and I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, but it still sounded like crap there.
Jeff Scott Soto was running the board that night. Jeremy, your next few picks.
Yeah, so I think I've only got 6 left, so I'll give you maybe in twos now.
Okay.
So the next one is Graham Bonnet's album Day Out in Nowhere, which came out in May. I bought this. Unfortunately, it jumped a lot on vinyl, and I got in touch with Frontiers, who released it, and they sent me out another copy of it, and it also jumped. So
wow.
I've got 2 copies which jump, and they're the only copies that I've bought this year which do. I said to them, listen, don't send another one because it's just going to jump. I'll maybe make the best of it between the 2 albums. But anyway, that's my story of that album. The main thing about the album is that I think he put together some really good songs on it, and he's got a really good backing band. There's some great guitaring on it, and it's a nice mix of songs as well. So if you play it, several times, you get into it almost every song that's on the album, and you realize that even the weaker tracks are worth listening to. There was some interesting topics on the album, and I just thought it was a really good performance by a guy who's in his 70s and able to write decent tracks.
Yeah.
And then the next one of those, if we're doing it in twos, I would say the Thunder album, Dopamine, which came out in April, is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I play it regularly. I mean, as you know, Thunder are massive here in the UK. They've become very big, largely amongst people of my age as well. So they sort of played on mainstream radio as well here. I don't know how they did it, because they released an album the year before, which was very good, and then they seemed to release this double album of roughly 16 tracks, where they said that they couldn't drop any tracks, so they decided to put it out as a double instead of a single album. And every song is brilliant on it, and it's they really are at the top of the game. Very quality band producing quality songs, and it's just standard rock, but it's real to listen to.
Okay, cool.
And I've actually listened to that album a few times, and I do own it as well, so it is good. And so was the one before that.
Okay. Joining us, looks like Ed Ferguson has decided to join us. Ed the Shred, how are you tonight?
Doing good. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly fine.
I'm getting a lot of interference. Is that me or you guys? You hear that too?
No, I don't hear that.
Yeah. If I end up sounding choppy, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sounds like Jeremy's barking.
Oh, those are my dogs. Apologize.
That's fine.
Wasn't that a Pearl Jam song?
What, dogs? That was a Pink Floyd song as well.
Jeremy's barking. Okay.
Oh no, well, yeah. Okay. Gotcha. All right, so there we go. We can see Ed now. Ed, have you compiled any albums from this year that have jumped out at you?
Yeah. Of course, I like the growly stuff. So might be a different list. My favorite this year so far has been the Corpse Grinder. That came back out in February.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking over here at my iTunes, so that's why I'm turning my head here. One of kind of a surprising pick, one that I've come to really enjoy, probably my second favorite pick of the year so far, is the Generation Kill.
Okay.
You know, that I like the Hatriot better than I like some of their previous albums.
Okay.
But that Generation Kill, however they produced that record, it sounds great. I'm starting to enjoy some of those new Lamb of God tunes.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed that Violence EP that we listened to earlier this year.
Right.
And then the that new Undeath. Those
Okay.
are probably the top records I've been listening to. And then you also turned me on to this band I told you I'm enjoying a lot, Psychroptic. Did I say that right?
I believe so.
Yeah. You know, I don't listen to a lot of that kind of tech death metal, but there's something about their sound that really draws me in. Those guys are good. So, yeah, several good things. The Municipal Waste is good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. The Crowbar, the Darkane. There's a lot of good stuff this year so far on the extreme metal side.
Yeah. No, that's cool because my list, me and Jeremy have only overlapped once so far.
Yeah, cool.
So that's awesome that, you know, we've kind of got all bases covered. I want to actually put a list together afterwards so that people kind of see what we've been listening to and what we think people should be checking out. So, because I mean, a lot of these sites, when they put together, you know, their picks, it seems as if they try to go with the most obscure stuff possible. You know, it's like, well, you know, it's they're doing it for image sake as opposed to just, you know, shit that they're actually listening to. But whatever. All right, so let's see. I'll give you another two here. Jeremy just gave us two. Ed just gave us a bunch of his. And for me, again, following the theme of industrial hard rock bands that I've been checking out and really enjoying. I didn't expect to like this at all. Band out of Italy called Sick and Beautiful released the album Starstruck. They released the first single off of this album. I should have had it pulled up so that I don't sound like an idiot when I talk about it. But just pull this up real quickly here. I listened to their back catalog and nothing sounds as good as this album. So I think that, again, this comes down to COVID, having enough time to actually write and produce stuff that sounds really good. This Is Not the End is the first single. When that came out, I just kept playing it over and over and over again. And the entire album, I think, is really good. So that's one that jumps out at me. And Ed just mentioned Corpse Grinder. Well, the band behind Corpse Grinder put out an album called Kings and Liars with which is Charlie Belmore and his brother Nicky, and Chris, I believe, is the bass player's name, who are now also working on Ripper Owens' new album and Jamie Josta's new album. They're kind of the team that works behind Josta, basically. They released an album called Transition Animals. It's nowhere near as heavy as the Corpse Grinder. It's a mix of just like heavy hard rock bordering on metal. A lot of really cool melodies. They actually cover an REM song, which I always thought years ago, thinking, you know what? This would be a really cool metal song if somebody actually, you know, decided to like heavy it up. So they did that, and that was kind of cool. So let's see, Jeremy, you're next too.
Yeah, so getting into the final four now. So my next two, the next one, you probably agree with me on this one. It's the new album by Ghost Imperia, which came out, I think, in March. Really good album, really, really good. Great theme. that sort of civilizations and what have you, rather than being sort of the usual black metal death sort of stuff that they do. And some great songs on there, really good songs. I thought it was. I mean, they're obviously a famous band now, and they're going to get a lot of sales. That you go into mainstream supermarkets and wherever, and record shops, and they're the number one album, or the one that's being advertised. But you've still got to produce something that's really good. And I think that they're probably just peaking on this album for me. And I think you've mentioned that as well, Victor, in the past. So that's one, Ghost, and then the other one. The other extreme, which you probably all hate, but I absolutely love, is the new Journey album, Freedom. I'm a big Journey fan. I loved Escape when it came out, way back in the 80s. It was the best AOR album. They're one of the best AOR bands, but they haven't produced an album recently that has been up to the mark. This album is up to the mark. This album exceeds the mark, and it's an album that you can play and play again. There's some great songs on it. It's a double album, and I will, stand by that one.
All right. So I actually have the Ghost on my list, so we've actually crossed over on 2 with that and the Tony Martin. So, Ed, any other albums you want to mention since we're still rattling stuff off?
Yeah, Dave Grohl's Dream Widow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I'm still listening to that. I really enjoyed that Wake Up Dead single that Dave Mustaine did with Lamb of God.
Yeah.
That probably covered that. Decapitated's not bad.
Okay.
And then I've been checking out that new all-female death metal band from New York, I think, Castrator.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
They're good. I think they're probably my favorite all-female extreme metal band I've heard so far.
Oh wow, cool.
They can jam. They got a good sound. But yeah, that probably covers it for me. I'm not getting into the Creator as much as I hoped I would this year. I think you said you liked it though.
Yeah, I liked it, but then looking back at some of the albums that I've really been listening to throughout the year, I think it's a cut below. I was stretching it here because both Jeremy and I picked 15, he picked 14, and I went by, what I have in my 2022 playlist and what albums have the most amount of songs, and I started listening to stuff. And I was like, I like the album, but I don't feel that it's as strong as some of these others that that we've talked about so far, and the few that I'm going to rattle off that are left here. With the Dream Widow, it's funny because I've heard on another show where they started talking about comparing that to the Probot album, and what they were saying was that younger fans seem to like the Dream Widow more because it's more of an extreme type of a deal, whereas maybe older metal fans are more into the Probot because that's more of a doom stoner metal type thing. So I love that Probot album.
I do too, and he's got all our metal heroes on there, playing with him.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the guest musicians and vocalists. Yeah.
So, let's see. For me, if I have to rattle off, there's 3 left because I said with the Ghost we coincided. Return to Earth, Oblivion. I had both Chris Penny and Ron Scalzo on earlier this year. Again, an album that has a little of everything. I mean, Chris came from Dillinger Escape Plan, which has a lot of nuttiness at times with what they do. And again, mixed with a lot of electronic type things. Just something that I've enjoyed this album since I heard it. I don't know why it's not on any of the streaming services now. I got it on vinyl, got the test print, which is the first test print I've ever gotten from any band, which is beyond cool. So Return to Zero, Oblivion. And then similar to what you mentioned before, Jeremy, for me, the latest Korn album, Requiem, only 9 songs, 40 something minutes. I've always been a Korn fan since the beginning, but I think that these last 3 albums, they've kind of taken it up a notch to what they had done earlier on in their career, and I think that this really follows the last 2 albums. And again, if you don't have 15 songs to put out, don't do it. If you've only got 8 songs that are good, just put those out. If you only got 6, put those out. Don't do what fucking Def Leppard did and just, 80 something minutes of just shit, basically. It doesn't make sense. Just put out a single, put out an EP. You're not going to tour on the stuff. So what's the difference? So yeah, so for me, that would Return to Earth, Oblivion, and Korn, Requiem. Brad, you haven't chimed in a little bit here. Anything that's jumping out at you?
Probably.
Brad is on retirement blues. So
it's true. I have bought so much new music, and I've listened to just a very small amount. I did listen to the Journey album twice. I gave it the VMR test, and because I like Jeremy so much, I'm not going to talk about that. So it's not awful, but it's just not what I wanted. It's mostly the production. It's just like where it just sounds. It sounds. I feel older when I listen to it, not younger. I want to feel younger when I listen to music.
Well, here's the thing, Brad. We're in August. You have some time between now and December to catch up and be ready for the end of year show.
Yeah, I'll be. I'll have some downtime, maybe on a cruise ship, and be able to listen to lots of music. We'll see.
I hope you don't plan on streaming it because it'll be awfully expensive.
Oh, damn, that's a good point. Oh, yeah. Oh well.
Bust out the disc, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, yeah, I got to start. I had a goal of like listening to an album a day when I became retired, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
All right. Jeremy, I'm assuming that with your last 2 picks, you're going to overlap with my last choice here. But what are the last 2 for you?
Could well be one. I think we know what that one is. Let me go to the second one first, which I think Brad's going to like this one much better. In fact, I know he likes this one much better. It's the Saxon album, Carpe Diem, which came out in February, and it's just Saxon through and through. One of the great British bands, still doing it, still playing what they should be playing, proper rock and roll, proper metal. Thought it was probably on a par with it, if not better than the previous album. It was it was just rocks all the way through, and you know what you're getting with Saxon. So that's one of them. And then of course my top pick, this is probably the number one, but I'm not quite sure, I haven't really ranked them, but it's the one that will overlap with you, and of course it's the Scorpions album, Rock Believer, which came out in the same month. It was a real throwback to the old days, really. A lot of the songs on there were similar to old albums that we've heard. It was in that style. Some really good tracks on there, double album, and a real return to form for the Scorpions, I thought.
Yeah,
agreed. And I've listened to both those albums. Good. So how about that?
There you go. The Scorpions album is the one that overlaps with me. I've enjoyed this album a lot. Like you said, it sounds like a lot of their earlier stuff. To me, it's probably their best album since Savage Amusement. I know that some people were saying that it's the best thing since Blackout. I couldn't say that because, I think that Savage Amusement was a really good album. I think that Love At First Sting is a really good album, and Blackout is my favorite album by them. So to say that this is better than Love At First Sting, for example, I can't subscribe to that. But the best thing since the late 80s, I'll give you that. I think Mickey D came in and really kicked their ass, and he's got a specific legacy playing in Motorhead and King Diamond and stuff like that. So I think that his influence on the band really, at least I'm hoping that that's what made the difference. Again, maybe COVID helped a little, having additional downtime for them to work on this. The album is good beginning to end. I even like the ballad, not being a ballad guy. I even think the ballad is decent. This is exactly what, again, there's these monumental albums by bands that have been around for a long time where you think, why don't all of these bands release stuff like that? I can point to this. I can point to Judas Priest's Firepower. I can point to, I really liked, I always fuck this up, the last Van Halen album. Yes, I know that it's technically not new music, but given that was what we were going to get, a different kind of truth. That's it. Yeah. Trying to think. I think Rat's Infestation was along those lines as well. But then you get clunkers like Saints of Los Angeles by Motley Crue and shit like that, where they're trying to placate to the Blink 182 crowd or the Papa Roach crowd, and it's, as a diehard fan, that's not what you want to hear. So, Jeremy, Ed is asking if that's a Metal Heart t-shirt. I believe it is, right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Very cool. So, so that's our quick rundown of the best of, or our favorites of 2022 so far. It's awesome that, Ed, you were able to join us, because you're able to bring that other side of things. Again, I think it's kind of unfair when you see these lists on sites where it's just focused. They're trying to cover a lot of genres of, or subgenres of metal, and we don't all like the same thing. But at the same time, I value your opinion. I value Jeremy's opinion. It's just as valid as mine. And there's shit I like that you guys, I'm sure, hate, and there's stuff that you guys like that that I probably don't listen to all the time either. But it doesn't matter that it's not good. So I love that you're able to come on and bring that side of the table, and Jeremy bringing us definitely probably the most AOR person in the group. So when I'm putting lists together and stuff, I'm like, this one's right up Jeremy's alley. He's gonna love this one. So it's always great to kind of have all bases covered with what we do here. So awesome. Cool. So we're gonna be wrapping things up. It's kind of sucks that Brad, now you know that we start things an hour before when you joined, and hopefully we can get Ed on sooner. We are going to hopefully have all you guys on for the 1983 episode, and that should be really neat.
Do we have a date for that yet?
It's going to be the 26th, because I think that's, Ed, you said that's the day that you're going to be available, right?
Yeah, well, I chose that one so I'd have the more time to be prepared for that. Digging into all the music from 1983.
Yeah. Well,
so yeah, spend a couple of weeks doing that, and we'll have a good show.
What we're gonna do also this time around, so that I don't have to chase people down twice. When you send me your pick for your album, send me your favorite song off of that album as well, so we can make a playlist right off the bat with all of that as well. So I was actually putting the thrash playlist today, which this weekend will go live. So I'll share that with you guys. I think it's a good cross section of all things thrash. I know it was hard for all of us, especially when you look at some bands that are amongst your favorites. There are certain bands that I switched songs several times because I was in the mood for one song or another song, or being that I see the list, there were a few people that I'd coincided with picks, and I was like, all right, well, Metallica, for example, I switched my Metallica song twice. So because other people had picked some of the other songs that I'd picked.
I'm looking forward to it, seeing what everybody put on there, especially with the one song limit.
Yeah,
per band.
It's definitely hard. There were plenty of these bands for me.
That was a good rule you made there. That makes it fun.
Because
how many total songs you got?
It's gonna be 70 songs.
Ooh, wow.
So, yeah, for me, Anthrax, Metallica, Megadeth, Suicidal Tendencies, those were super hard for me because I love so much of all those bands' catalogs that it's one of these things where you know that there are certain bands that you love so much that depending what mood you're in, there's a specific song that's number one for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so on a Tuesday in August, you know, it could be Master of Puppets, but then that Thursday it might be Battery. You know, so it's one of those things where, and I didn't want to have 70 songs, and it turned out that 50 were Metallica songs. So I think this makes it. This makes it good to have like a cross section between each band. And shit, if people don't like it, they need to become patrons and vote next time. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So should be cool. I think that everyone will be pretty happy with all the stuff that was picked, and I think that some of these songs people are gonna see that they're kind of out of left field. There are a few of them. The interesting thing is how many people will listen to it without checking out the entire list beforehand to kind of be surprised as to what's there. Because that'll be a neat experience, I think, because I do think that there's some that you won't expect that you'll hear and you'll be like, oh wow, yeah, this was a great pick because I haven't heard it in a while, or I forgot about this one, or I would have picked this one, but this other one kind of spoke to me more. So it should be cool. So I'm sure I'll be getting everyone's feedback as soon as I post it. So 83 will be a doozy as well. I will say that I believe that we it won't until we get to 1990. There won't be an album, or there won't be a year without Iron Maiden releasing an album. So it'll be interesting to see if between 83 and 90, if anyone will be able to squeak it out to beat them out, because so far every year they've released an album, it's been voted number one.
There is one.
80.
There is one that will push Iron Maiden out this time, I think, in 83. I think. But I'm not saying anything more.
That's a bold prediction.
Number of the Beast.
That's
arguably their biggest album. I don't know. Listen, I love surprises. I love when people's picks are kind of left of center, and it gives us a reason to check out albums that maybe, again, we maybe didn't listen to back then, or we want to revisit as a result. So I'm all for that kind of stuff. So let's see. I guess, Jeremy, is it a Saxon album by any chance?
No, it's much bigger than that. Come on, we're talking 1983. Think about who released their debut album in 1983. The greatest album. What was that?
The greatest
album. I know who you're talking about.
Didn't hear what you said. Ed. Say again.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, come on. One of the greatest singers that we know in heavy metal. It's got to be number one, surely. Anyway, I'm not saying, because I don't want to influence the vote. So forget all about it. Let's just forget all about it.
All right. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see when the voting is done. So if you want to be part of that 1983 show, if you want to influence the vote, if nothing else, become a patron. You can do so for as little as $2 a month. I know that I'm a pain in the ass about that, but if I don't toot my own horn, nobody else is going to do it. So
$2 a month is nothing, man. I mean, seriously.
Yeah. Well,
it's about enough gas to heat your home for about 10 seconds.
Yeah, there you go.
These prices, current prices.
Well,
hanging out with you guys is worth a lot more than $2 a month. Maybe that's why I pay so much.
Hey, Ed just mentioned Castrator, for example, which I posted on Patreon within the group. So that's amongst some of the bands that I've turned people on and turned people on to, and Ed just found out about them recently. So there you go. So for anyone that's again a lazy listener that says nothing good has come out since '89, there's plenty of good new music coming out. You just got to find it. And if you join the Patreon group, you'll see that I kind of facilitate the entire process. So anyway, any parting words before we call it a night? Ed, anything you'd like to say before we disconnect here?
No, it's just been good to hang out with you guys, and thanks for all the help finding good music this year so far, Victor.
Awesome. I love hearing that. Brad, anything from you?
I really like the new Megadeth song. So there you go.
Cool. There you go.
Parting shot.
One of the things that me and Jeremy talked about before you guys came on, the rest of the year, from the rest of August up until the end of October, there's big releases coming out each week. The Megadeth is coming out with a bunch of other things, and then the following week is the Ozzy. So there's going to be plenty of music to digest as usual between now and the holiday season, where all of this kind of shuts off and becomes all greatest hits and live albums. So there you go. Jeremy, any parting words?
Yeah, I just thought that last year's albums couldn't be beaten because I thought it was a really good year last year, and I'm so wrong because we're here now, we're in August, and there's been so many released already. Another great year.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I echo everything that you guys have just said. There's always something good coming out. Again, I personally am not looking for something to topple my favorites. I'm kind of looking for a side dish that goes along with the steak. Something else that I can pair with whatever my favorite album is, or whatever I'm in the mood to listen to. So it's always fun to talk to you guys about music, and again, hear that you guys are listening to things, to hear that Brad and Mike Jones, that their wallets are lighter thanks to thanks to music that I'm posting about. So there you go. On that note, we will wrap up the show. I thank all three of my guests tonight, and we will be back next week right here on the Signals from Mars live stream. See you, folks.